ActionVFX now has a subscription, and it starts at only $14.99 a month, which means everyone's videos are about to get a whole lot better. The ActionVFX subscription. We don't know why it's so cheap, so maybe you should get it before we change our minds. That's a terrible tagline.
Hello everyone, Danasa here with ActionVFX. In this After Effects tutorial, we will learn how to composite dust explosion effects using our ActionVFX asset collections such as Dust Explosions, Exploding Debris Volume 2, Dust Waves Volume 2, and Bullet Tracers. We will learn how to track an occluded shot in Mocha, integrating elements into a shot, as well as the basics of RotoBrush. While there are two explosions in this shot that you are seeing, they are done the exact same way. So for this tutorial, we'll only cover on creating one of the explosions. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here is our plate. Pretty cool. So what we want to do is first of course to track the plate. Now there are many ways to track this. You can do 3D tracking or you can do point tracking. But what I want to do is I want to use Mocha Tracking because there are a lot of open space here where we can do a planar track using Mocha. So let's do that. Let's go Mocha. And then we are going to click the symbol here. So now we are here in Mocha for After Effects. So what I want to track is this open area around here because I want the explosion to be like right behind this actor as he runs away, maybe like around here. Of course, the problem with tracking that area is we have our actors in front of it. So how can we track that if it's occluded by something? Well, we want to create an occlusion matte first and then track our background. So select the X-spline, create a garbage matte around our actors, and then we're gonna go through the shot and basically just manually adjust our matte into the actors. Okay, so we have done our garbage matte of the actor, and basically what we want is to rename it. Double click, name it occlusion. Okay, and then we are going to search for the space where we want to start tracking. So let's wait until our actor is out of the area and there isn't a lot of blur. Okay, so this area here is good for us to start tracking. So let's get X-spline again and select that area. Then let's rename this to ground track. Okay, and then we want to put this below our occlusion. And then we want to disable the gear on the occlusion. So what we're going to do is we're going to start tracking our ground track. And by disabling the gear and put our ground track below the occlusion, we're basically telling Mocha to use our occlusion matte to help our ground track ignore our actors when doing the tracking calculation. Okay, now let's track our scene. Let's track backwards. Cool, see that? It works. Basically, the actor is moving, occluding our track, but it does not disturb it because we have told Mocha to ignore these actors. And then let's track forward. Awesome. So now we have our track. Let's close and save. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we are going to create a null. So layer new null. And let's name this ground track. And then here in the backplate, we're going to go to tracking data and we're going to create track data and we're going to select the ground track. And then the export option, we're going to select transform and the layer export into the ground track null. Apply export. And now we have our null, so we can start adding in our explosion and stuff. Okay, so let's bring our explosion. We're gonna go with dust explosion number 7 here. And then what we want to do is, of course, we want to position our explosion and scale it. And we're gonna go to pan behind tool and we're going to move our pivot here. So now when we scale, press S, it would get anchored into that point. So let's go with something like 60% and put it around here. Okay, and then the next thing what we're going to do is we are going to mask out the ground, so double click it. Let's select the pen tool and mask out our ground. Press M, subtract, F. Let's go with 12% feather. Let's go to the composition again, position it. And then we are gonna go to parent and link, and we are going to finally parent our explosion into the ground track null. So now if we hit play, we have this. Awesome. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the explosion a bit faster. So right click, time stretch, and we're gonna go with 75%. Okay. So now the explosion kind of moves a bit faster, and then I also want to flip it because we have a light direction from the left side here, as we see from our actors, whereas the explosion has the light going from the right side. So press S, select the constraint proportion, disable it, and then we are going to add minus to the x-axis. So now it's flipped. So then what we're going to do is we are going to add a shadow to the explosion. So let's select the explosion, Control D, and then for this one, let's enable the constraint point again, and then toggle switch, and we are going to turn it into 3D layer. So that way we can rotate it to that direction. Go here because we have the lighting from left side, so the shadow will be somewhere around here. There we go. And then we're gonna go to fill, select the color dropper, and we are going to select a darker color from the scene, and then we're gonna get a fast blur and make it blurry, and then we're gonna press T and reduce the opacity to something like 40. Okay, so now let's rename this to Shadow Explosion, and maybe we want to make it a bit fainter, just like the shadow in here. So let's go with something like 30%. Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna go to our main explosion again. We're going to get rid of the dark edges that we have here. So what we are going to do is we are gonna go to Refine Soft Matte, bring it here, and here you can see how it's already doing its thing by removing the dark edges. But then we also lost so much of the debris here. So let's fix our Refine Soft Matte here. We're going to disable the calculate edge detail there, and then we are going to go to shift edge and press 1, and then the decontamination we're going to go with 20. So this is just the settings that I found work for my explosions. So I implore you to basically just play around with these settings until you find the right ones for you. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Really cool. So now what we're going to do next is to do color correction. We're going to match the color of the explosion into the background. So let's get curves. Then what we're going to do first is let's disable the mask. And then I want to bump the dark areas first. And then I want to reduce the highlights, and then lower the blue and increase the red. Okay, this is close enough. And then we're going to add some saturation, hue and saturation. And I want to reduce the saturation a bit, -15. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. Of course, we can still play around with this later, but this so far is already looking pretty good. Then what I'm going to do is I want to offset the timing a little bit. I want it to start a bit later. So next what we're going to do is to add another element, which is explosion debris, to simulate some chunks of the ground flying around. So let's add that. Let's get explosion debris from 7, and I'm going to get the beauty and the shadow pass. Okay, and then make sure the shadow is below the beauty, and then we want to parent the shadow into the beauty, and then scale it down, and then parent the beauty into the ground track null, and then we are going to retime it. So we want to start here let's trim the beginning. So select both of them and then Alt, open bracket, and drag it there. Perfect. And then let's reduce the shadow opacity to something like 50. And then let's add some color correction into the debris beauty. So let's add tint. And then let's map the black to a dark color in the scene. And for the white, I'm going to map it to the ground. And then let's bring in curves. And I want to reduce the blue and introduce some red. And then let's bring in Gaussian blur to make it blur a little bit. Okay, let's reduce the opacity of the shadow a little bit more. Let's go with 15. Cool, so it's getting there, but so far something that is really noticeable is the motion blur. We don't have any motion blur on our assets, which really made it pop out of the shot. We want to add motion blur, but we're going to do that at the end. So now to help blend this a little bit more, we are going to add dust waves. So let's do that. I'm going to add dust wave here, dust from number 10. And here we go. Now we want to get rid of the black background. There are many ways to do this. You can check out our black background removal tutorials, which you can check out on the description. So let's get shift channel. And then we're going to take alpha from luminance. So now the dust wave disappear. Well, not really. It's actually there, but it's really, really faint. So if we solo this here, really faint. So what I want to do is we want to add some curves and boost the alpha. So go to alpha channel and boost it up. And then let's add some tint. And then let's select a color and say this for the dark color, and for the bright color we're going to select this. And then we are going to go to RGB here on the curves and just basically we just want to play around. Actually, let's bring it back to 50% so we see a bit of that highlight. And let's bring our redness a bit, reduce the blue. Perfect. So let's add this here, and then what we're going to do is right click and time stretch, and we're going to change it to 50% so it's 2 times faster. And then let's position it here, move the anchor point, scale it down a little bit, and then we want to parent our dust into the ground track. And let's disable the backplate a little bit so we can see our explosion better. And now we want to basically set the timing for our dust waves and position it maybe. So basically what I want is to have the dust already building up as the explosion appears. So this is a good start here. And let's Alt open bracket so it trims our footage. And now what we're going to do is just populate the whole scene to make it really, really dusty. So let's go project, add another one, dust from number 8. And let's see, where is our dust? There we go. And let's Alt open bracket, move it here. And then let's copy our effects from previous one to this one. There we go. And then let's parent it to the ground track. Okay, so from here on, I'm just going to add more dust elements and just do the same thing over and over again. Okay, so I have added more dust waves. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to make the appearance of the dust wave to be a bit less sudden. So we're going to make them fade in into the scene. So select all the dust waves that we just added, press T, and then make them 0 on the opacity. Add keyframes, and then move a few frames forward. And then turn it back to 100. Awesome. Now let's turn on the back plate. Okay, so looking pretty good. The next thing what we're going to do is we're going to rotoscope our actor. Because as you can see here, our explosion and our dust are in front of our actor. So we want to make this actor to be in front instead of behind the explosion. So let's duplicate our backplate, put it on top. So now there are many ways to do rotoscope. You can use the simple masking, you can use Mocha, you can use RotoBrush. For this specific shot, RotoBrush would be helpful because the actor is moving really fast, and also the object that we are going to be occluding is a bit transparent, and also there's some motion blur, so the masking doesn't have to be super perfect in every frame. So let's get RotoBrush here, and let's enable our backplate here and double click. So the way to use RotoBrush is really simple. So what you want to do here, you have your green cursor. You want to basically select the object that you want to mask, and After Effects would automatically guess the shape of that object. So here I have selected this green, and let's select this more. And now as you can see, there are some elements there that get selected that we don't want. So let's press Alt and then stroke there. So now it would exclude that area, and then let's include this area again. Exclude that area. And there we go. And again here, doesn't have to be super perfect because of the nature of the shot. And then you want to move one frame, and the roto would basically automatically try to follow our shape. Of course, it's going to need our help here. Okay, I think we are far enough from the dust, so we don't have to continue. And then let's go back here. Okay, so this green stuff here is basically the length of our RotoBrush. So we have done, this is our original frame, and we have done into this frame, and we have gone back, and we're gonna go backwards. So let's move the frame, and again start painting like before. If the brush is too big, you can just reduce the brush. So let's look for our brush window, and then let's reduce this to 5. There we go. Okay, so once you have your RotoBrush finished, what you're going to do next is to freeze it. So by freezing it, you are caching your RotoBrush. So now that we have freeze it, we have cached it, what happens is that the roto shape is now being saved, so we don't have to worry about accidentally changing it. So next, let's go back to our composition. And here we have our backplate. Let's solo it. This is our shape. And if we go to the beginning there where the explosion happens, there we go. So here you can see the edges is a bit rough. What we can do is to use the motion blur, because there is a motion blur in our actor there. There we go. Now it's a bit smoother. Okay, so we have our shot. The last thing what we're going to do is we are going to add some bullet tracer coming out from the other side of the screen. So let's get that. Let's get our bullet tracer here, and let's solo it. And we are going to find a frame where we have our bullet trace. Here we go. And then time freeze, freeze frame it, disable the solo. And then let's rotate it. And then let's change this to additive. And then we are going to make it appear just before the explosion happens. So here, let's Alt, open bracket, and close bracket. So now it's only appearing for one frame. And then we're gonna add some glow. There we go. And let's increase the radius a little bit. Okay, so one last adjustment is the shadow here. As you can see here, the shadow is on top of this tree, which shouldn't happen. So what we can do is to go to the shadow explosion, and then we are going to roto that part out. So let's solo it and press M. And then for this mask, we're going to subtract. There we go. Disable the solo, and then feather it. 24. So now to wrap things up, let's select all of our elements, And then we are going to give it motion blur. So click here. And now we have motion blur. So if we go, let's say we go here. And if we disable the motion blur, this is what we have. And then we enable it, disable it, enable it. Perfect. And that was our shot. Once again, if you want to purchase the assets that I used in this tutorial, you can check out our website at ActionVFX.com. At ActionVFX, we provide high-quality VFX stock footage for your VFX needs, from fire, explosions, energy, and many others. You can also sign up to our ActionVFX subscription, starting at the low cost of $14.99 a month. This subscription is by far the most affordable way to get access to our library. And you can cancel anytime, no contract. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Let us know in the comment section below if you have any tutorials that you'd like to see next. So, see you next time. Bye bye.